Hello, everyone. Welcome to the customer panel at Satellite. So my name is Hilton-Jones, and I head up the solutions engineering team for GitHub in Europe, which means that I have the privilege of working with enterprise-grade companies across Europe, in a technical space. So we've worked with companies such as the ones represented here, over the last sort of 2-3 years, and it's always been a pleasure to do so. So without further ado, I am delighted to present the panelists here today. So they've all been key to the modernization initiatives at their respective companies. So they have a huge amount of insight to tell us about today. So I'm really excited about you being here, so thank you very, very much. So from right to left, we have Thomas Jansen from SAP. We have Cyril Lakech from AXA in France. We have Lothar Schulz from Zalando in Germany. And we have Eric Emalan from Exact Software in the Netherlands. So thank you again for being here. So to kick things off, could you please sort of just tell us a little bit about yourself, and also for those who don't know much about the companies that you work for, maybe explain a little bit about the company also that you work for. Starting with Thomas.
Sure. So my name is Thomas. I'm working for SAP, which is, I guess, apparently the largest business software development organization in the world. And there I'm heading the developer experience, we call it, initiatives, so taking care of our internal developers that they have best-in-class tooling, and also trying to modernize that towards cloud development.
Okay, thank you. Cyril.
So I'm Cyril. I'm working at AXA, the insurance company. It's quite a big company. I'm working in the IoT area on a mobile solution for our customer to be able to connect all their alarm or all the IoT stuff into the AXA mobile solution to increase the security of the home, for instance. And I'm mostly a developer, a Node.js developer, and I'm trying to empower all the developer community to use the best tools and the best methods, process, etc.
Thank you. Lothar?
Hi, I'm Lothar. Thanks for having me. I'm with Zalando. At Zalando you can shop fashion, shoes, trousers, shirts, everything you want. Mm-hmm. I do run the teams that take care about continuous delivery at Zalando, starting from source code management, continuous integration to deployment systems. Yeah, that's mainly it.
Thank you. Over to you, Eric.
All right, so I'm Eric. Have been working at Exact as a software engineer for 3 years now. Exact has its headquarters in the Netherlands, but we operate internationally. And what we do is empowering small and medium enterprises with our cloud business software.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So let's talk about the topic. The topic is modernizing software architecture. So what does that mean? So in simple terms, it's the intersection between the user, the business, and the technology. In terms of the details, I asked a lot of people about what it means, and I got a whole bunch of different answers. So, it means different things to different people. So maybe as the first question, I can ask each of you in turn, what springs to mind when you think about modernizing software architecture? What is the desired outcome of that modernization as well within your organization? So maybe start, with Eric.
Right.
Yep.
So if I think about architecture, it's the full process of going from your business requirements to actually working software. But it's much more than just the technical components. It's about how everything also in the organization and from a technical perspective works together to achieve that goal. And I think what matters now in this area where modernization is really important, to have that speed there, that you can quickly try something out for your customers and have validation on that. So the speed to get your idea into production is really important, which needs, your organization needs to support that as well as your tooling and your architecture.
Okay, and what's the desired outcome, the ultimate desired outcome of that speed and that modernization? What does that mean for your business
is that we can have when you have a solution, when you have an idea for something that will bring value to our customers, that we would be able to validate that idea with working software in production as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you. Same question to Lothar.
I would like to underline that feedback cycles, so this is really important to have quick feedback cycles for all the customers. You can envision, like, for most of us, it's most likely developers who want to test their code and also want to deploy their code, but also end customers, right? So if there are requests or if you can somehow improve your product, you should be able to do that as soon as possible. I would like to add one more notion, which is about the requirements you mentioned. It's often also about non-functional requirements, also about legal requirements, also about operational requirements that in the past sometimes have been a bit forgotten or haven't that much of attention. So this is also for me part of this modernization.
Okay, thank you. Cyril?
So I agree with what you said, and I will add that one important thing to do is to change the way we create software. More and more, the software have to be linked to other software. We have a lot of interoperability between very different companies and software. So we have to change the way we design the software to be able to connect and to evolve very quickly. And we have to open the software for other teams and other companies to be able to contribute to your platform in order to add some features and to integrate their own software into yours. So it's a quite new way to design the software, and it's a mindset to have to be more open for other people to be able to collaborate with your software and to be able to easily to evolve very quickly, as you said.
Okay, thank you. And sort of what have you been going through at your own company to actually try and reach that goal? What are the steps that you're taking?
We have to be supported by the CE stars level of the company, because this evolution starts a long time ago, but if you do it only at the developer level, it's quite hard to have a real huge impact all over the company. But when your CIO or CEO is telling you that you have to collaborate and to share with all different entities, it's quite easy. And then you have to set up different tool set to be able to go from this mindset to the real project. So we set up a few different tools and that we integrate into the information system to be able to collaborate all together. And then we have to leverage the knowledge, on the IT knowledge of everyone in the company. And we just learn from each other, and we share a lot more than before by organizing some developer summit, for instance, and some conferences like here, to share and to be able to collaborate easier.
Thank you. Same question to you, Thomas.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to modernizing software architecture, for SAP, it's at a large scale. The company is shifting from a classical on-premise shipment model to a offering cloud services model, and of course that has a huge impact. I mean, our current processes, if you look at that in more detail, are catered towards what we have learned in the last 40 years in terms of all the issues we have encountered, which are then if you encounter those issues, you try to avoid it next time, so you build up processes around that regarding security, legal, all those stuff which was mentioned. And now I think one of the challenges we are facing is how can we do that in a modern world where teams are more empowered to basically develop software in a fully responsible model, like a DevOps model. Mm-hmm. How can we still make sure that all those compliance rules are applied, and also not trying to trying to enable them and make it still possible for them to have fast iteration cycle as we have those things are very important.
Yeah. So, be more open, be more collaborative, but at the same time comply with the regulations and the sort of legal requirements of the company as well. Okay, great. So, to put this sort of a little bit more into context for the audience, can you give the audience a feel of how your teams actually work? Could you describe sort of a typical application lifecycle within your team, within your company, and how that's changed over time, more specifically? Where have you come from, in terms of the workflow, and where are you now, and where are you heading? That would be great to know as well. So if I go with Cyril first this time.
Yes. The life cycle of application changed a lot now. We have some short iteration between each production milestone, but we changed the way we collaborate on the code. Now every line of code has to be reviewed in a code review, not necessarily in peer review, but we are using a lot of pull requests. In more and more teams across the company, the pull request is mandatory. You can't add code to the software and production without having at least one people, maybe 4 people, it depends on the teams. Each team decides of their steps to be able to add some code in production. And this is one thing that's changed a lot. Another one is that now we want to reuse a lot of code and a lot of assets between teams. We don't want that every team reinvent the wheel between each project. So we have some common assets internal for most of them, then can be easily shared across the company, and we have the same quality gate for all this code, and we had a lot of more automation in the way we process code, and so we are moving to the DevOps more and more. We could speak about that for about 1 hour, I think. So I will let the other one to answer to the question too.
So as of now, our application lifecycle is like more or less divided into four parts. Part 1 is planning, part 2 is developing, part 3 is mostly deploying, and part 4, very important and often forgotten, retirement. So most likely, no software runs forever. Where do we come from? More or less from a monolith. We had quite some burden working with that, and we go for years now, but it's still an ongoing effort for a microservice approach. So those steps apply now to microservices. And with those microservices, you have to make sure that they can talk to each other somehow, most likely, in most of the cases via APIs. And for these APIs, you need to make sure that there are certain rules in place. As Laurie talked about this morning about this open source guild, we have another guild who takes care about how to design APIs, and this is how we make sure that those microservices can talk to each other and interact very well.
Okay, perfect. Eric.
Okay. Well, if you look at our development flow, you could actually see 2 patterns, because we talked about modernizing architecture, and you see more a classical flow and a modernized flow. So what you see is what we're coming from, and what still part of our company is a part where you have to deal with a monolith and a centralized code repository. Of course, dealing with a monolith is hard. You can't change it that easily, and that's also why you need a lot of processes within source control, for instance, to manage that, and to manage that you can still change it. So what you see in a typical flow is development happens, then there is a formal code review moment that takes until the next day until you get some feedback. Then the quality engineer will have a look, test it, and then it's merged by somebody else, which can oversee all the processes that are part of the monolith. And well, finally it's merged, and then something can be deployed, but there is still a big regression test in the end. Yeah, and it can fail for all kinds of reasons based on the development work that has been done by all the different teams. So that's the classic model that's not giving us the speed we want. So if you look at a modernized model, Indeed, as my neighbor, we're also looking into microservices and splitting up the big part that we have in smaller solutions. And there we're adopting GitHub. We've been running a pilot with that for 1 year now. And there you see that within the pull request, we try to tackle all the collaboration aspects already. So not a formal code review moment, but make it part of the pull request, have integrations running there. To have feedback on that as quickly as possible without going through all these different stages, but having that integrated to go quicker to prediction.
Perfect, thank you. So we're about halfway through. So modernization means change, and change is never easy, as we all know. You need to have a slight sort of cultural shift to be able to support that modernization, whatever modernization that is. How do you handle that? How do you handle the cultural aspect, the people aspects? Thomas.
That's a very good question. I mean, usually, and this applies also on how we introduced GitHub, for example, at our company. It was basically a bottom-up approach. Yeah, so usually we tried systems out. We have a few teams using it, and then we get their feedback. We see what works well, what doesn't work well, and then we grow from there. Mm-hmm. That's, I think, the usual approach. Then those teams, we can, have that reference, tell it to other teams, and if they like it, they can adopt it. I think, being such a large company, there are always options on how to do certain things. Mm-hmm. At least on a day-to-day basis for development workflows. And then from a cultural point of view, it's a classical change management process. Mm-hmm. You start with a few, and then if you see that something works well, you try to scale it, make it a full available offering inside of that company. But yeah, that's the very classical patterns, I would say, apply here.
Okay. So you start with a small team, and then you prove success with that team, and then you roll it out to
exactly,
yeah. Okay. Another question maybe for you, Thomas, quickly before I move on, is how do you measure that success within that team? How do you know if that's change, that modernization, has been successful?
By a couple of things. Of course, we talk to them, but we also have structured approaches for our internal tooling. We do surveys. Like standard measurements on how well people, like it, how was the end user experience, how well they can perform certain tasks, monitor that on a continuously basis from our department, and then see where we can improve. So,
okay, great. Cyril, I know it's a big topic for you. Cultural change, AXA being, a financial institute.
First, to measure if things are going well or not. We measure the incident on the satisfaction of the customer. Mm-hmm. So it's a quite easy way to know if we are doing better or not. And for the change of the culture, I agree with start with a small thing and then it will spread to all over the world. And I think when you choose a tool, there is a mindset behind the tool. So I think that's why we choose GitHub as a code source software. Because when you choose GitHub, even if it's first GitHub Enterprise edition, this means you want to be more open, and everyone will just check what is GitHub in the company and say, oh, we choose the company that is one of the leader in the open source area. So this changed a lot the way people think then, and again. If we want that the people change their mind and agree that we have to share more and to be more open, you have to organize a lot of events. You have to learn. You have to work all together. It's quite hard. For instance, for the security point of view or the architecture point of view, we have to set up some process. To be able to show that yes, we are more and more open, but we are still secure. So we have a process with a kind of review to check that everything is okay.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask Eric the same question, and then we'll move on with another question and ask you, Lothar. So Eric.
Okay. Well, yeah, employee engagement is one of our strategic pillars of the strategy we have. So it's really important that something like this change is also driven up from the bottom. What we did with introducing GitHub is that we indeed started small with a couple of teams, and then we heavily relied on surveys, asking the teams how they felt about it, how they perceived the change. For instance, we asked questions like, yeah, how would you rate our company as a whole if we would adopt, well, this tool, or what if we stay with our existing tool? And then you have 2 grades. And then we saw, for instance, that it's really a night and day difference. So tools for engineers that can really make a big impact on their daily work. And yeah.
Okay. Okay, so developer happiness is important
that's
to you.
definitely a very important thing. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
And you see it, for instance, when we started with GitHub, that we started small, but more and more people came asking, like, when can we get in? So you see the word and the rumor spreading around, and it really helps that journey.
Okay, great. So move on to security. I know we sort of touched upon security earlier, but you know, security is obviously important for all of you. But also an open and collaborative environment for the developers. So how does that play with each other? How do you ensure that the application is still secure while still fostering an environment of collaboration within your organization? Lothar?
First of all, I believe you should reconsider if your security guidelines, rules, measurements, whatever you have in place, are really needed. So maybe this is there just for legacy reasons, and it was just there, and that's why we need it. Maybe this is not always true anymore, but I'm pretty sure in large organizations you have to have certain security rules and regulations in place, and we'll try to incorporate them into the developer's workflow as frictionless, as seamless as possible. And we are on our way, so there is still a lot of stuff to do for us. But the key here is, I think, automation and tooling, right? So whenever you identify a certain area where you need to introduce rules, regulation processes, we'll always try to support it with tools or frameworks. And ideally, the customer, in my team's cases, it's often the developer, does not know about that. It's really the vision we are trying to achieve.
Okay. So build it within the automation, within the workflow, so that it doesn't seem like a hindrance to the developer themselves. Yeah. Okay. Great.
And ideally, even often those are configuration files or similar things. The developer does not really experience that, right? It's like files starting with a dot. In some file systems, you don't see them. You don't have to touch them. They are just there. It just works. Okay. That's what we are striving for.
Cool. Does anyone else want to address security?
Code reviews. When you do code reviews, there is a lot of people that is reading your code, so the security is increased because 1 for 5 people have read the code on the. If there is a mistake in the code, you have 5 different brains that check the code, and you can check the code at the CI/CD stuff too.
We combine those two with also looking into the integration. So for automation, for instance, you have tools like SonarCube, which can integrate and give you also security warnings. We are using, for instance, the Better Code Hub for measuring code quality, and also that makes sure that you're not, that you stay in a position that you do not overlook these things.
Absolutely, yeah.
We still have a manual security test every 2 or 3 months on the project. So
there's manual audits on top of the peer review and the automation as well. Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, maybe one thing to add, I think security is a very interesting topic, especially on cloud services. Yeah. We are trying out some tools right now who do like the next thing, who actually create pull requests whenever they find something. So conceptually you just merge it in the patch files. Those kind of workflows are enabled, by the ecosystem, and I think those are the exciting integrations. The scanning part and so on and so forth is we're doing that for years, but really getting, you know, from a bot like a patch request for a security issue, that's, at least for me, that's kind of a newer thing. So.
Okay. Is that homegrown or are you using?
No, we're using external
technology.
For that, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So 5 minutes to go. So obviously this is a GitHub conference. Your GitHub customers. You know, I know I'm interested in how you use GitHub at your company. I'm sure the audience is as well. So maybe you can describe, you know, how you use GitHub, what impact that has had within your organization. Lothar? Yep.
First and foremost, for us, it's the go-to place for source code for every developer at Zalando, because you have to have your source code at our internal GitHub in order to deploy. And there are only a few cases when you don't want to deploy. On top of that, it becomes more and more the place to document your processes, your software, whatever. In the past years, I often went to wikis or other collaboration software to find some documentation. Nowadays, it's almost always links to GitHub pages. And also in our internal chats, we'll see that more and more of those links happen. And the third thing about how GitHub is more and more used is visualizations, like be it pull requests, be it deployment statuses, CI statuses, visualizations in terms of machine learning graphs or stuff like that. Those are the three main areas I see in our organization.
Great. Eric, when we spoke recently, you talked about documentation as well. Yeah, is that one of the things that?
Yeah, that has a big impact with GitHub. It's so easily to if you have some code, look in the history, find back the pull request that introduced it, and what you see is when people work in the pull request, they also describe there what they are actually building, sometimes putting designs in it, and that information is really helpful later on to look at how did people build a system. And with GitHub, you can find all that documentation like in the open source world.
Thanks. Good. Cyril, can you describe how you use GitHub at AXA and what impact that's had?
The more impact that GitHub has on the enterprise is it helps us to share some code and some assets across the group. We have about 30 different entities all over the world, and each entities have their own assets to do some very simple stuff, and now we can share it using GitHub. And we don't share only code. We can share, for instance, the developer guideline for all the group. When we are pushing some new methods, some new process in the code, like CI/CD, on some software craftsmanship, anything, we contribute to the developer guideline, and the different people from different entities can add their insight into these guidelines, and then we can publish a new version of the guidelines, and we should follow this guideline in different entities.
Okay, good. So you are all sort of technical leaders in your fields. You know, what sort of exciting new technology sort of has attracted your attention? What are you excited about it at the moment? You know, that's something that you want to have a play with, something you think might you know, have a benefit for the future of you know, the tooling you use and the software development. Is there anything that's currently front of mind for you, Thomas?
Yeah. So right now we are, as many others, looking into bots and chat ops for our developers internally. That's a big story. Mm-hmm. Also something which we learned from GitHub itself, how it's developing itself. Yeah, mm-hmm. You know, what kind of best practices are applied there. That's one of the topics we are currently heavily investigating, how we can automate certain workflows here. Okay.
Lothar?
Serverless architecture and cluster management, I feel really passionate about. We do a lot of stuff in the cloud. However, if you have a lot of instances, you have to manage them somehow, and there is cluster management solution, or there are cluster management solutions out there. I think we should use, and that are really interesting. And even one step further, maybe you don't need instances or nodes anymore, because you just have serverless architectures and you just have your lambdas and they just do what you want. And I mentioned it already, machine learning to automate things, to foresee what developers, customers want. It's also really interesting, I believe.
Perfect. So I think sort of we're running out of time now, unfortunately. I could talk to you all day. You know, maybe you'll be floating around here for the next few hours in case you know, people want to talk to you in more detail. But it's been very, very interesting about learning about your role and about sort of the technologies you use. So thank you very much. I think a big round of applause for the panelists.